The reassuring sounds of the drinks trolley. I'm hoping that there may be some throat-based
yes, that would be nice.
relief. I don't know. What have you grabbed from the trolley there, Suze?
Well, I've got a very lovely and warming lemon and ginger tea bag with a dash of honey just for you.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you.
No alcohol in that.
No,
though.
now, well,
No
am I allowed whiskey in there?
Yes.
Well, you could put a little dash of whiskey in there.
But not during the show, I have to say.
Maybe not right
Yeah,
now.
obviously.
Yeah.
So today's confession comes from Timothy. Now, I should say there is some Spanish involved in
Oh,
this.
excellent. Excellent, yeah.
I haven't run the Spanish past Matt, who's a fluent Spanish speaker.
Uh-huh.
I am going to go for it.
Great.
And then-
Speedy Gonzales style accent, here's hoping.
But I don't want you to translate
Oh, right.
until we get to the reveal.
Okay.
You can just enjoy the Spanish.
enjoy the Spanish.
Along with everyone
Wow.
else.
Fabulous.
Timothy says, Father Simon, the forgiving souls of the congregation on Greatest Hits Radio. This confession is to ask for forgiveness for myself, as the below is entirely my own fault, and I have no one else to pass the blame on to. Which is interesting because there's almost always someone else to blame,
Yeah.
but not in this case. When I was at school, a posh private one just outside Chester. Was that exclamation about
Already.
Chester
Already.
or about the posh private school?
It was the posh private school.
I made friends with a boy called, for the sake of this story, Gonzalo. But in reality, his name was George.
Okay. I wonder where the Spanish bit's coming in. Anyway, carry on.
All was great with my new friend. He was funny, helpful, and actually shared his sweets. It's very important.
Wow.
Marvellous. When meeting my parents, including my Spanish mother, he was always courteous. All was great until his family and mine went on holiday to Spain, whereby George turned into a spotty, pointy, shouty type of tourist who made no effort to speak the local language, much to my mother's despair. Instead, he raised his voice, jabbed his finger at whatever he was talking about. We've all met people like this. George and I drifted apart when attending different universities. He studied history, not languages, surprise, surprise, until fate threw us together at a stag party 5 years ago, also in Spain. Much to my dismay, the years had not elicited any cultural reckoning with George, Gonzalo, who still shouted and pointed after whatever he was talking about, and generally treating everyone local as idiots. That was until one night in a tapas bar in the old town, he asked me, a fluent Spanish speaker, how to tell the staff the meal was nice. I held out as best I could and nearly proffered the correct answer until the memory of the incessant tutting that came from my mother when on holiday with George, Gonzalo, years ago. Every time he raised his voice and pointed, memories came flooding back, and I thought it was time for some revenge, Duolingo style. So I told him the best way to tell the locals your food was nice was to say, "Me duele el culo." Funny to Matt.
Yes. Very good.
And Spanish. How do I get away with that?
Yeah, you did get away with that. Very good, yeah.
Now, George, Gonzalo, and I practiced the pronunciation, which I hope you're doing for your listeners. Me duele el culo. How would you say it?
Me duele el culo.
Me duele
El culo.
el culo.
There you go. Yeah, very good.
So we were practicing this, sat in a tapas bar to sniggers from the other diners until the bill came. Then George, Gonzalo, valiantly offered to pay while still shouting, announced to the bar, I'm not going to shout, "Me duele el culo," whilst rubbing his tummy and pointing at his empty plate, to which the horrified staff scarpered to the back, fearing the worst, but everyone else continued to snigger. The phrase is, of course, translated into English as,
I've got a pain in my bottom.
I have to say, Google Translate was slightly more vulgar.
Oh, was it really?
Yes.
I mean, family radio and all that, you know.
Is there a suggestion of something slightly more vulgar?
No. Oh, well, a little bit more vulgar than bottom.
Yes.
But I've toned that down, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, Timothy says it's my bottom hurts, but anyway, I've got a pain in my bottom. There you go.
Yeah.
I thought he may have realised that I'd done him a dirty. But upon meeting him at a family-run tapas bar this very week, Father Simon, this week, he still proudly tells the staff, "Me duele el culo," as he did this weekend, to the grins and sniggers of staff, whilst telling me it always pays, you know, to know some of the lingo. And I'm a fluent Spanish speaker, says Timothy. I don't seek forgiveness for setting him up, but I do seek forgiveness from all the Spanish-speaking people that George has encountered in the past 5 years before telling them in perfect Spanish that his bottom hurts. I mean, I think I know which way this is. I'm almost certain I know which way this is going to go. Let's see what Sister Susie thinks.
Well, Timothy, I feel like your friend was very rude, wasn't he? Gonzalo or George. And, you know, he wasn't very nice to all of the people he's met before. So I feel like I have to give you forgiveness because you didn't really do anything wrong, apart from, you know, get a little bit back on him on behalf of all the Spanish speakers out there. So I am going to forgive you today.
I see. I think it's going to be a 2-0 situation.
Yes, I think it definitely is going to be 2-0. I remember being in a similar situation where a friend of mine, when I was in Spain, wanted to know what "I love you" is in Spanish, and I gave him a phrase which was definitely not "I love you."
What was it?
It was, well, I can say it in Spanish, but don't ask me to say it in English. "Vete con el diablo."
What does that mean in English?
Which would mean it means that it doesn't mean "I love you."
Will we get complaints now from our
Spanish speakers? Anyway, so basically we'd all do the same, wouldn't we? If you spoke a language and you thought this person needed teaching a lesson, then you tell them a phrase like that. And inspired that he's still doing it now. The fact he's still doing it now.
And this last weekend.
Even better, so definitely forgiven.
Okay, so people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Timothy, yes or no? On the text, please, 61054. The first word is Simon. Forgiveness or no for the people's verdict, 61054. First word is Simon. Just before the news at 6, a confession from Timothy and his embarrassing friend George, who never tried to speak proper Spanish, even to Spanish people in Spain. He just shouted. It was very insulting. And so Timothy decided, he was a fluent Spanish speaker, decided to help him. When he wanted to know how to say the meal was nice, he told him to say, "Me duele el culo," which means my bottom hurts. Yes. Anyway, that was essentially what it boiled down to. What do we get?
So Michael in Worthing says, totally forgiving this one. We all know the Brits abroad character, the arrogance of it all. He absolutely deserved this. But not forgiven, says Gemma in St Margaret's. I feel sorry for George. He was trying to do the right thing and chat to the locals. Sure, it took years to get there, but I respect the effort. But forgiven, says Chris. Timothy, lying to make your friends look silly isn't very nice. However, your mate George wasn't the greatest, and I'm sure the local Spanish speakers had a great chuckle.
I'm sure they did, and maybe it's continuing because the last episode where he actually is continuing to say this incorrect phrase was just last weekend. So maybe someone might tell him, if you recognise the people who went to that posh school, which was
near Chester.
Your confession will be very welcome. We'll exchange it for a smart speaker if we use it. You send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. There goes the drinks trolley, which means it's time for that confession. But first of all, what are we sipping, please? Oh, hang on, there you go.
There she is.
Carry on.
Okay. I thought it might be nice to have a New England Session IPA, 4.1%, called Wonderland, which is very, very tasty from New Bristol Brewery. Delicious.
Always a local connection if she can get
yes,
it.
Yes, of course.
Definitely. Thank you, Sister Susie. Today's confession comes from Luke. Father Simon. By the way, don't try any of this.
Oh.
Ever.
Good. I like it.
I have been married to my beautiful wife now for 36 years. And after all these years, we know each other's sleeping habits very well. When one is feeling under the weather, the other invariably is there to lend a hand to get the requisite good night's sleep. My wife, Gail, was suffering with the usual winter cold with associated congestion issues. After a few hours of blowing her nose on a regular basis, she eventually rolled over and asked me to pass her the well-known menthol vapor rub used by all.
Okay.
Not wishing to rise from my slumber too much, I left the bedside light off and made a grab of the said menthol rub from the bedside table. Passing it to her, I advised her to apply plenty to her nasal area and perhaps on the sinuses under her eyes.
Okay.
She duly followed my instructions, plunging her fingers into the pot and started vigorously applying the treatment. 30 seconds passes, and the whole house is woken by the screams of my wife, frantically running to the bathroom to submerge her face into a sink of cold water and scrubbing her face with some urgency. What did you give me, you fool? My face is burning off in here. Was the general direction from the bathroom. That was the gist. I turned on the bedroom light, reached over to retrieve the bottle, only to find I'd passed her another well-known muscle relaxant from China with a reputation of generating a deep warming effect.
Yes.
Deep heat. I got out of bed to offer my assistance, but was told that my services were not required and I could return to bed. I followed the instructions, got back into bed and turned off the lights. Gail then returned to the bedroom, got into bed and asked again for the menthol rub.
Yes.
This time I was not going to make the mistake, and before passing another bottle in her direction, I unscrewed the top and took a good sniff just to clarify the right product was being delivered. Sure enough it was, most definitely said menthol rub. And again she applied it to the necessary areas. She thanked me with a slight hint of sarcasm and passed me back the bottle. A good night was had by all, eventually. Excuse me. The next morning, as is often the case, I felt myself feeling a little congested and decided to apply a little of the miracle rub myself. Walking up to my bedside table, I grabbed the bottle and plunged my finger in to feel a small piece of string embedded in the rub. Thinking this must be a fault during manufacture, I looked closely at the container to realize that it was in fact a menthol candle, not the required vapor rub. She'd liberally applied it to her face like a heavyweight boxer. And here's the thing, Father Simon, I have never had the courage to tell her of my second terrible mistake. And I ask you now for my forgiveness to clear the air, if you'll pardon the pun. I'm sorry for the muscle relaxant on your face, and I'm also sorry for the menthol candle on your face, but you're still beautiful.
Oh, you're still beautiful.
Nice.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of a nice way of getting out
Still
of it
beautiful.
at the end.
Sorry about that.
Sister Susie from the pub.
Well, Luke, I feel like I'm not sure you should put Vicks near your eyes. I feel like that would be quite stingy and sore. So I don't know.
Always follow the instructions on the packet.
Yes, exactly. Follow the instructions. I just don't understand how you could get it wrong twice. You knew you were in a bad way after you gave her the other menthol rub, and then you didn't double check it. A smell is not enough. Turn the light on. You're all awake. Just check before you give it. I just think that I can't forgive you. You got it wrong twice.
Yes.
No good.
And I think everyone is now imagining, because most people have used muscle relaxant at some stage, it's the smell of the dressing room. It's not supposed to go anywhere near your face.
Definitely not.
What do you say, brother?
Here's an idea, Luke's wife. Why don't you get the menthol rub yourself? Why do you keep asking your husband to pass you the menthol rub? It's on the bedside table. Go round the bed and pick it out yourself, instead of always relying on your husband to pass it over. Also, feels like a bit of a hostage of fortune to keep the menthol rub right next to the deep heat, right next to the menthol candle. Feels like that was always going to happen.
It's also a very crowded bedside table.
There's a lot going on that table, isn't there? So, for that reason, I'm going to forgive, because Luke's wife needs to pick out the menthol rub herself. You know, come on, we're all in this together. Get your rub yourself.
Scraping the barrel there, I think.
No, I don't think so.
Anyway, it's the people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Luke for, until this moment, unconfessed crime against his wife, Gail? 61054, first word is Simon. Just before the news, today's confession from Luke was about his wife, Gail, who actually wanted a well-known mentha vapor rub for her infection, but he passed over a muscle relaxant by mistake and then compounded the mistake later by and he checked it was a menthol rub, but it actually turned out to be a menthol candle, and she didn't find out until today that that's what she was wearing. People's verdict, here it comes.
So Michelle in Worthing says, not forgiven. As Matt says, who keeps the deep heat next to the Vicks? That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. Alphonse says, forgiven. It could have been worse. My dad always swallowed a spoonful of Vicks to treat his cold. told.
Really?
Yes. Swallowed? No. And Tim in Sutton Coldfield says, definitely forgiven. Really funny, this one. In any event, he could always tell her to listen to Greatest Hits Radio, because as we all know, tunes make you breathe more easily.
Tunes. That was a good TV ad.
Yeah.
Anyway, just to repeat, always follow the instructions on the label.
Definitely don't swallow the
And
bit.
if it's supposed to go on your legs, don't put it on your face.
No.
And if it's a candle, don't put it anywhere other than the mantelpiece.
Yes.
Call me old-fashioned. Fantastic fader. Okay, now 5:45. Oh, very good. We're all in need of a little bit of a drinks trolley moment. What are you choosing for us today, Sister Susie?
Well, seeing as you're not 100% and still keeping up your fluids, I thought nothing better than a classic cup of tea. Yorkshire for me.
I don't like tea.
You don't like tea?
No.
Who doesn't like
I've seen you drinking tea.
No, you haven't.
Isn't that...
Not black tea.
Oh, right.
Green tea.
Green tea, yeah.
Don't I have some green tea with ginger?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's tea.
Yeah. Yorkshire tea is black tea, though.
Yes, that is true. Yeah,
I don't want that.
Okay. Right.
Well,
just
I'll
green
have that.
tea.
You can have the green.
All right, okay. Thanks very
Brilliant.
much. That was helpful.
It was, wasn't it great?
Today's confession, which comes from Nigel,
Nice.
is... We've had so many lots of confessions, they fall into certain categories. And this is a school prank, but I don't think we've had anything like it before.
Wow, okay.
Okay.
Here we go.
So we're in kind of Bash Street Kids territory.
Yes.
Slash sort of soap opera drama / Line of Duty.
Oh, wow.
We're there. Nigel says, I've never bothered writing into a radio station before, but I thought this prank of mine was a bit too good not to share with your good selves. During my school days, I was, let's just say, a bit of a Jack the Lad, to say the least, and was forever getting into mischief, mostly innocent, typical lad stuff. I also kept similar company in my friendship circle, and as such had one particular friend, Sid, and here's the sentence, that did not attend school at all. Not at all.
Oh.
He never ever went to school. Now, obviously, there's a whole other story here.
Yes.
But for various reasons, Sid is unschooled.
Yes.
And one day, says Nigel, I had a light bulb moment. Wouldn't it be nice and slightly entertaining if Sid was able to experience all the wonderful joys that a normal school day could bring, just for one day? He could be a new boy, just one day, and then disappear. That would be fun. So the recruitment began for the shoes, trousers, shirt, tie, and blazer. Once we had his lovely new uniform, we got him dressed up, shoes polished, hair combed, and he was ready to embrace a whole new life of learning. Well, a whole new day of learning. So there's me, a pupil of Porridge Court, with Sid, same age, of no school at all. Into school, we proudly walk into the first lesson, English. I confidently stood up at the start of class and announced to the teacher we had a new boy in attendance. Without even blinking, the teacher handed him his new English book and a brand new work planner. How pleased I felt that we had at least got one lesson done. Didn't stop there. Second lesson, no problem. Sir, this is Sid. Here's a book, sit down. Third lesson, a breeze. Sir, this is Sid. Fine, sit down, here's a book. Fourth lesson, however, we had become increasingly confident in our little trick and began to play up. It must have been a nightmare. Unbeknownst to us, the teacher decided to write a note to the head teacher informing him that Nigel and the new boy Sid had been playing up. Upon receiving the letter, just my luck, our headmaster Grimes happened to be having a meeting with the local police.
Oh, unlucky.
To whom we were both well known.
Oh, right.
Due to our out-of-school activities.
Okay.
So when the head read the letter, he obviously said, "What new boy?" and told the police his name, and they responded by saying he shouldn't be anywhere near the school, let alone in it. So they then spent the whole of the lunch break scouting for us, but to no avail because we were hiding behind the boiler in the janitor's room. However, then came the fifth lesson, and we turned up. We were back, but now, with 4 teachers in a posse, they quickly rounded us up and sent us off to the head teacher's office.
Oh, wow.
Both sets of parents were called to come and collect us. Sid was arrested.
Arrested?
For trespassing, and I was suspended for 3 weeks for plotting with an intruder.
Okay.
So you see, we moved into slightly different territory here.
Yeah.
My mother was busy at the time and couldn't collect me, so my father had to leave work. He picked me up, put me in his van, and he said these words to me. It's probably still one of the proudest moments of my life, Father Simon. Son, I've got to take you home now and tell you off in front of your mother. But me and the lads at work have said 10 out of 10 for originality. I seek forgiveness for what I thought was a harmless prank, and apparently so did my father. I think this is firmly under the heading of he doesn't need any forgiveness. He's still very proud of the fact that he got Sid into school for 2/3 of a day. Now, obviously, we don't condone any of this behaviour, and not going to school is against the law.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So therefore, we don't condone any of this. But very, very inventive from Nigel and from Sid. They nearly got away with it. Sister Susie.
Well, Nigel and Sid, your dad was right. 10 out of 10 for originality there, I think. However, you seemed very pleased with yourself, and I don't think you're asking for forgiveness at all. And you know what? You're not going to get it from me, because that was just silly. It was silly. You were suspended. That shows you how bad it was. What about this poor boy's parents? They didn't know where they were.
Yes, well, who knows? I suspect there's a whole story there.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah.
It's the teachers I was feeling sorry for, actually. Imagine having Nigel in your class anyway.
Bit of a handful, that's what I'd say.
If he
on the report
himself,
card. Yeah.
He says mostly innocent, typical lad stuff. I think that word mostly is working very hard in that sentence. Anyway, yes, let's see what Brother Matthew has.
Interesting that we have had so many school confessions, and this one it's completely new. I've never heard of someone cheating to get an education. Look at me pulling the wool over your eyes by turning up to your class and filling out my book. Yes,
most of the teachers are going fine. Sit down.
There you go. Here's double maths. Well done. Joke's on you. I'm going to forgive. I'm not sure plotting with an intruder. I'm not a solicitor, but I'm going to wonder whether that's a charge. And for reasons allied to that, I'm going to forgive.
For reasons allied to that.
It's my new thing. For reasons allied to that, I think it's a winner. I'm going to forgive.
61054 on the text. First word is Simon. Before the 6 o'clock news, we had a confession from Nigel from his school days. I'm guessing it's probably the 60s or something like that. Anyway, he had a mate called Sid. I've made these names up. Anyway, Sid never went to school. Completely unschooled, so they thought it would be a jolly wheeze to smuggle him in and just say he was a new pupil for one day and then he'd disappear forever. They got through 5 lessons before the headmaster, having been tipped off by one of the teachers who was in a meeting with the police, eventually got Sid arrested, Nigel suspended for 3 weeks. We don't approve of any of that kind of behaviour.
No, we don't.
But it was a lark as far as Nigel was concerned and as far as Nigel's dad was concerned, because Nigel's dad thought it was very funny. Anyway, the people's verdict here is...
Michael in Newquay says, forgiven. I like the fact that the teachers at the start just gave him a planner, didn't question anything. But not forgiven, says Lucy. Feeling sorry for the teachers here. Nigel sounded like a bit of a nightmare and a real joker. No one finds it funny, Nigel.
Correct.
But Joe in Boston says that confession was brilliant. Definitely forgiven due to the originality and his dad's response.
It certainly was very original. If you have a confession, send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Now let's do some essential work, because it's thirsty business what we're doing here. Not doing it for fun. We want a drink out of the thing. What have we nabbed from the drinks trolley, Suze?
Well, I'm trying to think of things that can help you feel better. So I thought we could do a homemade ginger shot today. So apple juice, some grated ginger and a squeeze of lemon. You can drink it as it is, or you can add hot water for a nice warming kind of alcohol-free hot toddy type drink.
A sensible, healthy drink, Matt.
Very, yes, for a sensible tomorrow.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Is that your motto?
It is.
Sensible tomorrow.
Today's confession comes from Roger, and we're back in school. Father Simon, Sister Susie, Holly, and Brother Matthew are then removed the line because it was a little bit inappropriate.
Oh, was it?
Yes, from a political point of view.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I'd like to throw myself on your mercy for sins I committed nearly 2 decades ago when I was a fresh-faced, newly qualified teacher. I'd finished my training year and secured a job at a school that was in the process of becoming an academy, back when very few schools had made the switch. On my first day, the head had come to see me to apologise that a class, 10B2 class, were on my timetable. She said This was a very tough class, and mostly they were taught by senior leaders. But timetable restrictions had meant they'd had to put me with them. As it happened, I actually got on really well with this class, with this unteachable bunch of students, and very much enjoyed my lessons with them. They were a great set of kids, and when it came to my observation at the end of the first half term, because the relationship was good, they turned into the most perfect class you could imagine. And this, while 2 deputy heads were in the room. Imagine that. This itself had a knock-on effect, as all the senior leaders that couldn't get them to do anything in their lessons came to see me, and they were perfect every time. I think this is Roger just bigging himself up because of the crime he's about to commit.
Oh, right.
Now, these, Father Simon, were different times, and as we approached half-term, I told the students I had some great lessons planned for them in half-term week, which surprised them. They said, "Sir, it's half-term, we're not in." To which I replied, "Have you not been told? Now we're in an academy. We don't have to follow those national school holidays, and half-term is only for people who have 0 behaviour points. And you've all got a few, so you're all coming in." This led to 15 of them arriving at the head's office that lunchtime to complain about their lack of holiday, to which the head laughed and said, "You need to stop listening to everything that Roger tells you." Now, I'd like to say it stopped there, but unfortunately, no. This class had me for maths and various deputy and assistant heads for everything else. And then another NQT, newly qualified teacher, let's call him Long John. They had Long John for information technology. Now, Long John and I were good friends and had played many a prank of various classes, but I worry I had taken things too far. Long John was a large gentleman. He played offensive lineman for a local American football team, but in his youth had been very much in shape and had won gold at various junior world taekwondo championships. He'd shown 10B2 some photographs, and they came in to tell me all about it, to which I told them he'd made it all up. You don't want to believe Long John. He's an IT teacher. He knows his way around Photoshop. Anyway, they believed me. And then one day, and I don't know why, I mentioned about Long John. I said, "Isn't it incredible how he gets around on that wooden leg?" "You what, sir?" "He's never mentioned it." "Oh, well, don't tell him I told you. It's not something he likes to share." I thought nothing about this for a week or so, but then one Tuesday, Long John burst into the staff room, very red in the face, and shouted, "You need to stop lying to 10B2. Having forgotten my lie, I asked what happened, and he said, "They asked me if I had a wooden leg, and when I said I didn't, they wouldn't believe me. And then Charlie grabbed hold of me and tried to take it off. He tried to unscrew it one way, and then he tried to unscrew it the other way." This caused the staff room to roar with hysterics, which made Long John even madder, and out he stormed. So here I am nearly 20 years later, and hopefully wiser, asking for forgiveness from Long John, who did eventually calm down and see the funny side, and the long-suffering head, who may have had more occurrences of 10B2 being mad at the new school rules. Anyway, Roger kind of set himself up, I think, at the beginning, so that we know that he's a good teacher, but he likes to have a laugh.
He does,
especially where Long John is concerned. What do you say, Sister Susie?
Oh, Roger, I just feel like you were that class, you were told that they were quite a tough class, and you probably should have set a better example, I feel. You should have taught them the right way to do things and not encouraged them to tell lies and be silly. Long John was manhandled, and I don't think that was very nice, so I'm afraid I don't think I can forgive him, even though it was very, very funny.
Just checking I've got the right Kate Bush track lined up.
You have to do that
which
now.
I believe I have. It's hard work, this final business.
It is.
Brother Matthew.
I'm going to forgive, because he turned this class around, didn't he? Like your man in Dead Poets. He got them all going in the same way, and then I know obviously a bit of fake news there about the leg, but question authority. There's a lesson, isn't it? Question authority, kids, and that's what they ended up doing.
I'm not quite sure of your reasoning there.
Taking the leg off. So for that reason, I'm going to forgive.
For that reason, and for those associated with it,
lined with it,
okay.
Your Honour, I choose to forgive.
All right, it's the people's verdict. Do you forgive Roger for? Well, he's clearly a good teacher.
Yes.
But then he played a wicked prank on his friend Long John, who ended up with the class trying to take off his false leg.
Correct.
Which he didn't have. 61054 for the people's verdict, please. The first word is Simon. Forgiven or not? 61054. First word is Simon. Before the news, a Roger confession. Now, Roger, he's the teacher who had a troublesome class. 10B2. But he seemed to be getting on fine with them. However, he did set up another teacher, Long John. When he was taking 10B2, he made the class think that actually Long John, a large gentleman, had a wooden leg, which he did not have.
He didn't.
But the class did try and unscrew the leg before they realised that actually Long John wasn't... he was actually 100% there. And it was all Roger's fault. The people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
So Michaela in Sevenoaks says, forgiven. Roger sounds like a legend. He managed to gain the trust of a really tricky class and had a good laugh with them. All great stuff. Should be on the teacher board. Sammy, though, says not forgiven. Poor Long John. Roger must have seen it coming that 10B2 would behave badly. But Wayne in Bristol says forgiven. He was only pulling the class's leg. It wasn't his fault that they went on to pull Long John's leg.
You have a special voice for when you're doing a pun.
For the best one.
It's a very annoying voice. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for those. And if you have a confession, send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.